His killing field was Milwaukee, and he got away with murder for more than a decade. But how could any of this happen?
Born in 1985 in a quiet town, John Doe was the product of a broken family.
Fantasies about picking up a hitchhiker and taking him back to the house. And
His father, a violent alcoholic, left when John was just 6. His mother, struggling with mental illness, could not provide the emotional support John desperately needed. School was a place of torment, where he was bullied for his appearance and shy nature. At 13, John's fascination with dark, macabre things began to surface. He would spend hours reading about unsolved mysteries and serial killers. The first spark of something darker ignited within him when he watched a documentary about a notorious killer in 1999. From then on, John's world became increasingly consumed by thoughts of power, control, and the thrill of secrecy. His early life, marked by neglect and isolation, set the stage for a chilling transformation into one of the most feared figures in criminal history. The initial foray into darkness. On a cold evening in 2003, John Doe's transformation took its first deadly step. His target, Sarah Miller, a young woman walking alone, became the unwitting victim of his twisted desires. With calculated precision, John watched her from a distance before making his move. The crime scene, found the next morning, left the authorities puzzled. No signs of struggle. No witnesses. Just a chillingly clean execution. For John, the feeling of power and control was intoxicating, a sensation he had never known before. The thrill of his first murder lingered in his mind, propelling him deeper into darkness. As the investigation stalled, John was emboldened. His obsession with death grew, and he knew, deep down, this was only the beginning. His urge had been awakened, and there was no turning back now. Recognizing a serial killer's signature, by 2005, a chilling pattern began to emerge in the small town. A series of murders, each eerily similar, left the authorities scrambling for answers. The victims were all young women, alone at night, and there were no signs of forced entry or struggle. Each crime scene was methodically staged, with a single object placed near the body, a red ribbon. Detectives began to connect the dots. The killer's choice of victims, his careful planning, and his desire to taunt the police with these small, bizarre details all pointed to something terrifying. A serial killer was at work. John, however, remained calm, blending into society while his dark alter ego thrived. The growing realization that a pattern was forming only fueled his need to kill again, his obsession with perfection leading to even more meticulous planning in his future crimes. Law enforcement's pursuit of the Phantom. By 2006, the body count had risen, and the town was in a state of panic. Law enforcement, desperate for answers, formed a special task force to track down the elusive killer. They called him the Phantom, as he seemed to disappear without a trace after each murder. His methodical killings left no forensic evidence, and witnesses were non-existent. Detective Emily Harris, the lead investigator, was determined to crack the case. She meticulously examined each crime scene, searching for even the smallest clue. It wasn't long before she realized the killer was taunting them, leaving behind small personal items like a handkerchief or a letter, each one hinting at his next move. As the investigation intensified, John grew increasingly confident, enjoying the chase. His careful attention to detail made him feel invincible. But little did he know, the net was slowly closing in. The hunt was on, and the Phantom was now being watched, peering into the mind of a monster. As the case dragged on into 2007, investigators turned to psychological profiling to understand the mind of the killer. Dr. Alan Walker, a renowned criminal psychologist, was brought in to assist. After reviewing the crime scenes and the patterns, he suggested the killer was likely a highly intelligent, methodical individual with deep psychological trauma from childhood. Dr. Walker's analysis revealed a chilling insight. The killer sought control, relishing the power over his victims. His choice of women, each isolated and vulnerable, indicated a deep-seated hatred toward those he saw as weak. His need to stage the crime scenes with eerie precision was a reflection of his desire for perfection and recognition. the profiler's insights became crucial, giving the investigators a glimpse into the killer's psyche. They now understood that John was not just a random predator. He was a calculated, deliberate force driven by a disturbed need to dominate. Key breakthroughs in the investigation. By 2008, the investigation had made little progress, but the pressure on law enforcement was mounting. In a breakthrough, Detective Emily Harris noticed a peculiar detail. All the crime scenes were within a specific radius of a small, forgotten park in the town. It wasn't much, but it was enough to spark a new line of inquiry. Investigators dug into the backgrounds of residents near the park, and a strange coincidence emerged. John Doe had lived in the area for years, and his alibi for several of the murders was shaky at best. Suspicion began to grow, and surveillance teams were dispatched to follow him discreetly. For John, the increasing attention was both thrilling and nerve-wracking. His paranoia began to set in, but he continued to carefully cover his tracks. Yet, as the net tightened, he could sense that his perfect game might soon unravel. The law was closing in, and time was running out. The end of the hunt. In 2008, the relentless pursuit of the Phantom reached its climax. Detective Emily Harris had spent months following leads, studying the killer's behavior and connecting small pieces of evidence. The breakthrough came when a witness reported seeing a man near the scene of the latest murder, John Doe. The description matched perfectly with a man who had been in town for years but had somehow managed to avoid suspicion. On a cold, rainy evening in October 2008, the police raided John's apartment. Inside, they found a disturbing collection of items: photographs of victims, news clippings, and most shockingly, detailed plans for future murders. As John was arrested, he showed no emotion, staring blankly as if everything had finally come to an end. For Emily, the arrest was bittersweet. The hunt was over, but the horrors John had inflicted on the community would linger forever. The chilling killer was now behind bars, but his legacy of fear had only just begun, seeking justice for the victims. In 2009, the long-awaited trial of John Doe, the notorious serial killer, finally began. The courtroom was filled with tension as families of the victims, law enforcement officials, and the public waited for justice to be served. John, calm and collected, sat quietly in the defendant's seat, showing no signs of remorse. His defense attorneys tried to argue his troubled childhood and mental state, but the overwhelming evidence against him made their case weak. The prosecution, led by District Attorney Mark Turner, presented a chilling case. They detailed the brutality of his crimes, how he had stalked and murdered innocent women, and how his meticulous planning showed a mind completely devoid of empathy. For the victims' families, the trial was a painful reminder of their loss, but it was also a moment of hope for closure. In the end, the jury found John guilty on all counts. As the verdict was read aloud, the courtroom erupted into tears, some of relief, others of sorrow. Justice had been served, but for many, the scars of John's crimes would never fade. The killer's life in prison. After his conviction in 2009, John Doe was sentenced to life imprisonment without the possibility of parole. He was sent to a maximum security facility, a place where the once feared killer now faced the grim reality of life behind bars. Far from the intelligent predator he once was, John quickly became a target for other inmates, many of whom viewed him with disdain and hatred. Despite his past bravado, John found himself isolated, his reputation as a notorious killer now diminished in the harsh reality of prison life. Guards and fellow inmates alike kept a wary eye on him. Prison psychologists, eager to understand his psyche, often interviewed him, but John remained silent and indifferent, offering no insight into his past actions or future plans. Yet, even behind bars, his name continued to haunt the town. While the world moved on, John's story lingered in the shadows, a constant reminder of the darkness he had once unleashed. The long-term impact on the community. Years after John Doe's arrest, the the small town remained forever changed by his reign of terror. The once peaceful streets now carried an air of caution, and many victims' families continued to struggle with the loss. Local businesses, once thriving, suffered as tourists and new residents steered clear of the area, fearful of its dark history. The case remained a constant subject of media coverage, with documentaries and books keeping the memories of the victims alive. Detective Emily Harris, though relieved by the conviction, was haunted by the years of struggle to catch the killer. She knew that while justice had been served, the scars left behind would never fade for those directly impacted. John's story also sparked a greater focus on crime prevention and psychological profiling, influencing future investigations. His legacy was not just one of fear, but also of change, as the town became more vigilant, more aware of the dangers lurking in the shadows. The ghost of John Doe would always linger, even if his physical presence was gone. Don't miss the next explosive story, Double Lives, the untold story of a community leader's criminal past. Subscribe now or risk being left in the dark.